Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted with your whole heart? Someone who was supposed to have your back no matter what, only to watch them stab you right in it? I'm talking about the kind of gut-wrenching betrayal that doesn't just hurt, it shatters your world, leaving you questioning everything you thought you knew about family. That's exactly what happened to me when my own brother framed me in front of my boss, costing me a job I'd poured my soul into, and I'm still reeling from the fallout. This isn't just a story of sibling rivalry gone wrong. It's a raw, messy journey through anger, heartbreak, and the dark path of revenge that I walked down to reclaim my dignity. Stick with me as I unravel the pain of being sold out by my own blood, the memories of a bond one thought was unbreakable, and the shocking truth behind why he did it. I fought to make sense of this mess, and now I'm at a crossroads, needing your help to figure out what's next. Let's dive into one of the darkest chapters of my life, how I got my revenge, and whether it was even worth it. My name's Ryan, and I'm 32 now, sitting in my small apartment in Austin, Texas, where the humid nights and distant strum of live music from downtown bars feel like a fitting soundtrack to the chaos I've lived through. This story spans from 2012 to 2023, starting when I was 21, a wide-eyed guy hustling to build a career, and centers on the devastating betrayal by my older brother, Jake, who's just 2 years my senior. The emotional conflict tearing me apart is the clash between the fierce loyalty I always felt for Jake, my protector, my best friend, and the burning rage that consumed me when he threw me under the bus for his own gain. The unexpected twist came in 2020 when I learned that Jake's betrayal wasn't just selfish ambition. It was driven by a hidden resentment he'd harbored for years over a childhood incident I barely remembered. This all unfolds in Austin, a city of vibrant energy and scorching summers, where the sprawling parks and bustling tech scene became the backdrop for my struggle to rebuild my life after being torn down by family. Growing up in Austin in the early 2000s, Jake and I were thick as thieves, raised in a modest house near Zilker Park by our single mom, who worked double shifts as a nurse to keep us fed. I can still picture us as kids, racing our bikes down Barton Springs Road, the sun baking our skin, laughing as we splashed in the natural pool at Barton Springs, not a care in the world. Jake was my hero back then, taller, tougher, always stepping in when bullies picked on me at school, teaching me how to throw a punch or sneak into concerts at South by Southwest when we were teens. Now, as I sit on my couch, the faint hum of 6th Street nightlife drifting through my cracked window, I ache for those days when I believed he'd always have my back, before everything went to hell. The trouble started brewing in 2012, a sweltering Austin summer when I was 21, fresh out of community college with a certificate in IT support, landing my first real job at a growing tech startup downtown. I was thrilled, staying late at the office near Congress Avenue, learning the ropes, dreaming of climbing the ladder while Jake, 23 at the time, bounced between odd jobs, construction, bartending, never quite finding his footing. I'd come home to our shared apartment in East Austin, sweaty from the heat, buzzing about my day, and he'd just nod, his jaw tight, like my excitement was a personal slight. I didn't think much of it then, chalking it up to stress, but looking back, I can see the seeds of jealousy taking root, hidden under the surface of our late-night talks over cheap beer on our tiny balcony. By 2013, I was settling into my role, earning small bonuses, even getting a shout-out from my boss, Mark, during a team meeting for fixing a major server crash. I'd walk home along the Lady Bird Lake Trail, the water shimmering under the Texas sun, feeling like I was finally making something of myself, texting Jake to meet me for tacos at Torchy's to celebrate. But his responses got shorter, his excuses flimsier, and I started noticing how he'd changed the subject whenever I mentioned work, his eyes darkening like storm clouds over the hill country. I'd lie awake in my room, the cicadas chirping outside, wondering if I'd done something wrong, or if he was just struggling with his own demons, ones he wouldn't share with me anymore. The betrayal hit like a freight train in early 2014, a muggy spring day when I was 23, called into Mark's office out of the blue, the air conditioning barely cutting through the tension. I'll never forget the way my stomach dropped as he laid out accusations. Someone had reported me for leaking sensitive client data, a lie so blatant I could barely process it, backed by forged emails that somehow traced back to my account. I stammered, swore it wasn't me, but the damage was done. I was suspended pending investigation, my reputation trashed. Walking out of that glass-walled office, past co-workers' curious stares, I felt the heat of shame hotter than any Austin afternoon, my mind racing as I stumbled down South First Street, not knowing who'd set me up, or why. It wasn't until a week later, in 2014, after sleepless nights pacing my apartment, the city's endless traffic noise a backdrop to my paranoia, that I pieced it together. A coworker, out of pity, tipped me off that Jake had been seen meeting with Mark days before, pitching himself for a job opening, my job. I dug deeper, hacking into old shared accounts we'd used as teens, finding drafts of those fake emails on a device he'd logged into. The realization hit me like a punch to the gut, worse than any schoolyard fight. My own brother had framed me, sold me out for a paycheck. I sat on my bed, the room spinning, the distant strum of a busker on Rainy Street mocking my pain, torn between sobbing and screaming, unable to fathom how the guy who'd once shielded me could do this. Through the rest of 2014, I was a wreck, fired after the investigation couldn't fully clear me, scraping by on freelance gigs while Jake moved into my old role, avoiding my calls, acting like nothing happened. I'd see him occasionally at Mom's house during forced family dinners, his smug silence louder than the clatter of dishes, while I bit my tongue, rage simmering under my skin like the Texas heat. I'd escaped to McKinney Falls State Park, hiking alone among the limestone cliffs, the rush of waterfalls drowning out my thoughts, wrestling with the urge to confront him, to ruin him like he'd ruined me, though part of me still ached for the brother I'd lost. Austin's vibrant energy, food trucks, live bands, felt like a cruel contrast to the darkness eating at me. By 2015, I was 24, living in a cheaper place in South Austin, far from Jake, working odd IT jobs, my confidence shattered, every rejection email a reminder of the career I'd lost. I'd drive past the startup's office on my way to gigs, the sleek building a taunt, imagining Jake inside, thriving on my downfall. Nights were the worst, spent in dive bars off East 6th, nursing Lone Stars, plotting ways to get even, though guilt gnawed at me. Could I really hurt my own brother, even after this? I'd walk home under the city's neon glow, the heat still oppressive even at midnight, torn between the love I'd once felt and the hatred now burning brighter, wondering if revenge would heal me or just break me more. The anger festered through 2016 as I watched Jake post online about promotions, team outings, living the life he'd stolen, while I struggled to pay rent, my dreams of stability slipping away like the Colorado River's current. I started digging into his digital footprint, old habits from our teen hacking days resurfacing, finding sloppy mistakes in his work emails. Nothing illegal, but enough to embarrass him if leaked to the right person. I'd sit in my cramped apartment, the hum of my ancient laptop mixing with distant thunder, debating if I should pull the trigger or if stooping to his level made me just as bad. Austin's stormy nights felt like they were egging me on, the lightning mirroring the fury I couldn't shake. By 2017, I was 26, and the need for payback consumed me, a slow burn that flared every time I saw Jake's face at Mom's for holidays, his fake concern for my rough patch, like salt in the wound. I crafted a plan, anonymous tips to his boss about minor policy violations I'd uncovered, small enough to avoid suspicion but frequent enough to dent his perfect image. I sent the first one late one night, rain pelting my window, my heart pounding as I hit send, a mix of triumph and shame washing over me. I'd walk along the and Roy Butler hike and bike trail the next day, the city skyline looming, questioning if this petty revenge was worth the cost to my soul, or if I'd already lost too much to care. The retaliation unfolded through 2018, as I kept up the pressure, more tips, subtle sabotage, watching from afar as Jake's social media hinted at stress, vague posts about work drama. I felt a twisted satisfaction, sitting in coffee shops like Houndstooth, sipping espresso while scrolling his updates, though it was hollow, each win tainted by memories of us as kids, building forts in Zilker Park, promising to always stick together. I drive out to Lake Travis on weekends, the water calm under the brutal sun, wondering if I'd gone too far, or if he deserved every bit of this for breaking our bond. Austin's endless summer felt like it was fueling my vendetta, a heat I couldn't escape. By 2019, I was 28, starting to rebuild with a steady IT contract at a smaller firm, though the bitterness lingered, a shadow over every step forward. Jake's career hit a plateau. Rumors of being passed over for a raise reached me through mutual friends, and I slowed my attacks, unsure if I'd made my point or just exhausted myself. I'd spend evenings at local open mics, the strum of acoustic guitars at the Cactus Cafe a brief escape, wrestling with whether I'd healed at all, or just traded pain for guilt. I avoided family gatherings now, unable to face him without the old rage flaring, though every missed barbecue at Mom's stung, a reminder of the closeness we'd lost. Austin's quirky charm, street art, food trailers, felt distant, like I was a stranger in my own city. The unexpected twist came in late 2020, during a rare, tense call with Jake after Mom begged us to talk it out, over Zoom, the pandemic keeping us physically apart but not dulling the edge between us. In a moment of raw honesty, Fueled by too many beers on his end, he admitted why he'd framed me. Back in high school, I'd gotten a scholarship he'd applied for, one he thought he deserved more, and Mom had bragged about me for months, leaving him feeling invisible. That resentment had festered for years, exploding when he saw me succeeding at the startup. I sat there, screen glowing in my dark room, the distant sound of a neighbor's dog barking, stunned as the pieces clicked. Not just greed, but a wound I hadn't even known I'd caused. The Texas night felt heavier, my revenge suddenly petty against the backdrop of his pain. That truth haunted me through 2021, as Austin slowly reopened, masks coming off, but my confusion staying put. I'd replay his words, walking through South Congress Avenue's bustle, past vintage shops and buskers, wondering if I'd missed signs of his hurt back then, or if I'd been too wrapped up in my own life to notice. My career was stabilizing, new projects rolling in, but every success felt muted by this revelation. Had I pushed him away without realizing it? I'd sit on my balcony, the city's skyline twinkling, questioning if my revenge had been justified, or if I'd just deepened a rift that started long before 2014. Portland's muggy evenings mirrored my mood, a sticky unease I couldn't shake. By 2022, I was 31, my life on an upswing with a solid job at a mid-sized tech firm, though the void of family gnawed at me, especially on quiet nights when I'd scroll through old photos. Us at the Texas State Fair, grinning with cotton candy. I hadn't spoken to Jake since that call, too raw from the truth, though Mom hinted he was struggling, layoffs looming at his company. I'd spend weekends at Mount Bunnell, the city sprawling below, wondering if he regretted what he'd done, or if he still blamed me for that scholarship all those years ago. Austin's golden sunsets challenged me to decide if I could forgive him, or if some betrayals cut too deep to mend. Reflecting on this mess through early 2023, I drive out to the Pedernales Falls, the rugged beauty a stark contrast to the turmoil inside, thinking about how Jake's betrayal had nearly broken me, and how his confession reshaped my anger into something more tangled. I'd recall the early days, so full of trust, now shadowed by years of resentment on both sides, wondering if I'd been too quick to retaliate, or if I'd waited too long to understand his side. I thought about my own pain, how I'd craved justice, questioning if I'd ignored his struggles, or if I'd been too hurt to see beyond my own loss. I'd sit by the river, the water rushing past, asking if I could rebuild something with him, or if some wounds stayed raw. By mid-2023, my career was thriving, with a promotion to team lead, a small office overlooking downtown, though success felt incomplete without closure. I celebrated milestones, closing a big project, buying a better car, though I did it alone, a void I felt even as I smiled at team happy hours. I started revisiting old haunts, like Barton Springs Pool, the cool water stirring memories of childhood swims with Jake, wondering if he'd heard about my new life, or if he was too wrapped in his own to care. Austin's endless summer heat felt like it was testing my resolve, pushing me to decide if I'd reach out, or keep building this life on my own terms, no matter the cost. The emotional weight of this unresolved conflict persisted, even as my days filled with purpose, each memory of being framed a reminder of how much I'd lost, and how much I still yearned for answers. I'd spend late nights in my apartment, the hum of the city mixing with crickets, wondering if I'd let this grudge grow too wide, or if it was the only way I'd protected myself. I started avoiding Mom's house near Zilker, unable to face those streets without the sting of old memories, though every detour made me question if I was running from him, or from my own longing to reconnect. I'd take long drives out to the hill country, the rolling vistas a brief solace, asking if I'd been too harsh after learning his truth, or if some betrayals were just too heavy to forgive. Reflecting on my past became a constant loop through the fall of 2023, especially on quiet evenings when I'd sit on my balcony, work laptop closed, thinking about the brother who'd once been my everything. I'd recall the time we snuck into a Willie Nelson concert as teens, laughing under the stars, a memory now tainted by the years of hurt. I thought about small moments, Jake teaching me to fix a flat tire, now warped by time, wondering if he'd been told I'd moved on, or if he missed me as much as I sometimes missed him. I'd walk through Zilker Park during the Trail of Lights, the holiday glow a contrast to my mood, questioning if I'd ignored his pain back then, or if I'd been too consumed by my own to see his. Austin's heartbeat, live music, food trucks, challenged me to decide if I could rebuild with him, or if some bridges stayed burned. Now, as I sit here in my apartment, the Texas night settling in with the distant buzz of downtown, the faint glow of Austin's skyline in the distance, I'm still wrestling with where to go from here. My life feels like it's finally on track, with a career I'm proud of and a future I'm building day by day. but there's an empty spot where my brother should be, a gap I don't know how to close. There are moments when I think about texting him, maybe meeting for a beer at a quiet bar on East 6th, seeing if there's still a chance to salvage something, to understand each other's scars. Then there's the part of me that wants to keep this distance, to focus on my own growth, my own peace, without the risk of being burned again. So, I'm turning to you, my listeners, because I'm at a turning point and I can't see the right road ahead on my own. Do I reach out to Jake, try to rebuild something from the ashes of all this betrayal and revenge, and risk opening old wounds? Or do I keep my distance, protect this life I've fought to reclaim, and accept that sometimes family isn't forever, even if it hurts? I've spent so long battling this anger, trying to find justice or closure, but I don't know if I've got the strength to face him, or if I even should. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Hit that like button if this story hit close to home, and subscribe if you want to follow how this all unfolds. I'm reading every single piece of advice, because right now, I feel like I'm standing on the edge of something big, and I don't know which way to turn. Thanks for listening to my chaos, for being here through the highs and lows of this painful journey. I'll catch you in the next video, hopefully with some clarity, or at least a small step forward. Until then, take care, and let me know, what would you do if you were me?